Ever have a huge pile of beautifully cut pieces of wood that are going to make up the coolest set piece ever, but have no way of attaching them? You won't if you watch this video about screws, one of the most common fasteners you could use in scenic construction. To learn more about these clever, simple machines, yes, I call them simple machines, stay tuned to Theater Tech. Drywall screws are one of the best resources you'll find for fastening creations together. Not only they're fairly easy to use, they're cheap, versatile, and readily available from any decent home improvement center. I said that they're a simple machine, and that's true, they are. They have a long cylindrically pointed shape with an inclined plane wrapped around them. This inclined plane maximizes your force to pull two pieces of wood together very tightly. The coolest thing about screws is that the inclined plane has a sharp edge, so it cuts and pulls together all in one motion. As with other materials that we use, it is important to keep yourself safe, so break out your safety goggles to keep your eyes safe from any particulates that may fly up when you're using screws. On our danger scale, using screws falls somewhere in the yellow zone of our danger scale. They are pointy and have sharp edges, so you could cut your finger when handling them, so be careful. Using them is also a pretty straightforward process. If you're attaching two pieces of 2x4 wood together and the first piece is an end, you'll need to drill pilot holes. Pilot holes are made with a drill bit that's slightly smaller than the screw that you're going to use. And they do two things. They guide the screw in like a pilot and relieve pressure so you lessen the likelihood of a split with the grain. After your hole is made, use a Phillips head bit and drive the screw in. If you're attaching two pieces of wood together and the first piece is on the middle, it's not entirely necessary for you to drill pilot holes, but you could if you'd like. When you're picking out a screw to use, keep in mind what you're screwing together. If you're attaching two things that are combined thickness of 1.5 inches, you need to pick a screw that is smaller, like 1.25 inches in length, so it doesn't protrude out the back of it. Just as dangerous as the screw is when you're handling them, they can be equally as dangerous if the points are sticking out when people are handling set pieces. On the other side of the coin, you want to make sure that you pick out a screw that will bite into the second piece of wood, a substantial amount. I would suggest trying to get that length that goes into the second piece of wood to be at least 3/4 inch in a smaller stock of wood, like a 1x3 or a 1 inch thick piece of wood, and more for a piece of wood that's something like a 2x4. Also consider what is happening with this piece. Are you making something that people stand on, like a platform, or is it going to be merely a decoration? If I was going to put together a 2x4 frame platform, I would use 2.5 inch long drywall screws. If I was putting together a Hollywood style flat, I would use a 1 5/8 inch screws. Using screws that are 2.5 inches in length on a Hollywood style flat is overkill, and you increase the likelihood of you splitting your wood as you're driving these longer screws in. With almost anything else that you're going to use, there are clear advantages and disadvantages to using drywall screws. On the plus side, they're readily available at almost any home supply store. They're inexpensive as well, so they're easy on your budget and they're pretty easy to use. Another cool thing about screws is that they make it easy to remove if you make a mistake. On the negative side, they're brittle, so they can crack and break easily. Additionally, while they are removable, using them over and over again in the same hole can compromise the integrity of an attachment. At some point, you might want to consider using nuts and bolts if you're attaching things together repeatedly, and you can check on my other video for more info on that. So in this demo, I'm going to use a 32nd inch drill bit to drill my pilot holes for a 1.25 inch drywall screw. I'm going to attach these two pieces of wood together just like this. It's not really something people would really do. Gonna make sure I hold them down properly. The pilot hole doesn't have to go directly through both pieces, but it should clear this piece and maybe even tap into that piece a little bit. Attach my Phillips head bit. The Phillips head bit corresponds with the head on this screw. And that's it. So that's the rundown on drywall screws. There are other types of screws you can buy and use for your projects too, like wood screws, which tend to be more robust but cost more. To conclude, make sure that you consider what you're doing so you could 1. Make sure that you should be using drywall screws, and 2. Pick the proper length of screws that you should be using for your application. With the things that we talked about here today, you should be able to make a great decision and know how they work. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, if you haven't watched my other videos, check them out. Leave comments down below, and happy crafting.